All right. Theoretically, we're live now. You are such an asshole. I hate you so much.
I can't see you, but I'll assume we're online. I have the live stream open too.
We're
Oh yeah, it
live.
says red live now.
Yeah, we're
Well,
live.
hi, hello, and welcome to the Eat-Sleep-Game podcast. No, I'm just kidding. But back in the day, it's Rebel FM, episode 217. But back in the day, Arthur and I used to do a podcast, just the two of us in my room, and that's what it was called. And so now it's kind of like a return to that in a way.
We've been diminished to the point.
Where we can only dream about someday having a job.
Someday I will write about video games for $5 an hour.
I wanted to get paid per post so badly.
Oh, Arthur, I got this job doing PSP reviews. They're not paying me, but they're gonna publish it.
Yeah.
It's Battle Chess.
Oh my god, I reviewed worse garbage than that.
Oh my god.
So here we are. It's me and Arthur. If you're not, I'm Anthony Gallegos. We're with Arthur Geese, in case you're listening to the audio version of this.
Hi.
And honestly, it's been a really surprising week for video games. Not only because the Amplitude Kickstarter succeeded when I didn't expect it to, but also because Wolfenstein came out and it was really good.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about that either. I really
Man.
wanted it to be great.
Let's start this off with some real talk.
Yeah.
So last year at E3, one of the games I played for Judges Week stuff, or not for Judges Week, but for Editor's Choice stuff, was I played Wolfenstein in Bethesda's booth. And you went to several E3s, so I know that you understand what I'm about to describe to you, which is that sometimes when you're doing a demo at E3, like there will be a person there standing like right behind the screens to sort of like explain or like help or get people's feedback on the game, and sometimes you play one that's just really not good.
Yeah, there can be bad demos.
And the whole time, like, you're not enjoying it, but you're trying not to make eye contact with that person so they don't see just how miserable you are playing their demo.
Yeah.
And then the worst part is when they ask you what you thought at the end.
Like, well, but sometimes the nice thing is that sometimes they do know,
That's
and
the
they know it's
worst.
bad, and so they want it though, because then if someone like you gives them an opinion, they can go back to their producer or someone and be like, "See, everyone fucking hates this.
Man.
We have to kill it, and you have to give us another month."
So on topic, like, and they did delay Wolfenstein, which is good because what I played at E3 last year, I did not care for at all. First of all, like the difficulty was totally out of whack. Like it was easy to die really, really quickly, and
it's still pretty hard.
It can be. And I don't know, like the gun just didn't click. You're not at the level that was in that demo, but that part is in the game. It's in the London Nautica for people who have played some of Wolfenstein. The part in the London Nautica where you walk into the area before the sort of planetoid gallery thing, like with the multiple tiers of corridor fighting, like that was the demo, and it was not fun. Like it was the opposite of fun. And I felt really guilty looking the person giving the demo in the face and saying, "Yeah, it was all right." Because that was easily the most bald-faced lie I told at E3 last year.
I see.
So, I mean, like, no game is worse for being delayed. A delay will always make a game better.
Yeah, I mean, chances are that they were, like I said, I bet you that negative feedback was actually like somebody on the team was probably like, "Thank God," because they knew that it wasn't, and now they just needed something to be like, either we can go live with it on the date you want, and we can probably get this Metacritic score because those are conversations that happen, or we can get 3 more months and we can give it probably this. I bet you we can bump it to that.
Right.
If we just get that. So
I mean, it's good. It's good that it got delayed. I don't think that my hopes were very high for it. I thought, oh, well, it's probably just going to be like a competent shooter.
yeah.
Even knowing Machine Game's sort of legacy, like, I really like.
What is their legacy for the uninitiated?
So Machine Games is composed of Starbreeze vets for the most part, who worked on Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay, who worked on The Darkness, and then like half the team left after The Darkness, right around the time they started on Syndicate, and half the team finished Syndicate, I think. And there's a moving truck outside my window. It's better than the birds that are always chirping. That's a real hassle to do voiceover. So it's veterans of Starbreeze that did this game who like have a lot of experience with storytelling in games,
and who made really great games.
Yes,
games that were known for their ability to tell a story in first person.
Right, and I think that there is like some real heavy shit that they explore in this game that they are remarkably successful with, which is the biggest surprise. Like,
yeah, I will say without spoiling anything that the thing that really surprised me about it is like within the first 20 minutes, they have a very Telltale Walking Dead-esque, choice moment where it's like you have to make the worst of a shitty situation. And like, I always find it very telling if a game, like for instance, the new Infamous, that's so tied to a mechanic that I never worry about. It's not a choice at all for me. I'm like, I'm going karma. I want to get my karma level up. Therefore, it's not a choice. And in this one, there's no pro or con to me at the time. Like I was just like, I don't know. So it's always telling to me if a game makes me pause, then I know it's doing something right. Because I had to pause and be like, oh fuck, I just don't know.
Did you pick right or left?
I picked right.
So in my opinion, I haven't played all the way through left, but right is what I selected for the review. And from what I played so far, I feel like right gives you the more interesting sort of stuff later on, because that doesn't just affect a specific mechanic, although it does that. Like if you pick one side, you get lock picking, and if you pick the other, you get hot wiring. Hot wiring is the goddamn worst, by the way. It's awful. And lock picking is just lame. But so it affects like two characters that are obvious, but there are additional side characters that are different depending on which side you pick. And I think making the choice on the right yields a much more interesting character, but I'm also not far enough into my second playthrough to feel 100% sure of that. But so far, that seems to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can tell, like, just with that initial thing, I'm like, now I kind of feel like I want to play it twice. But I love that initial choice because I feel like that initial choice is kind of like, as a soldier, are you making a decision as a soldier and what's best for the mission? Or are you making a choice based on, like, your heart? What does that tell you? Because it's pretty obvious who's the more useful of the two people.
Right.
Versus, like, like, it's like almost like one of those moments where you have a movie and you're like, oh, such and such person, you don't feel bad for them if you lose them because you're like, they were ready to die. Like, they'd made peace with that.
Right.
And, that other person's just so scared. But yeah, I mean, I liked that, and I had read your review on Polygon, and it was talking about the sort of human part of it and how they got that. And at first, going into it, I was totally skeptical because you get to those 4 difficulty settings that take you from like, oh, you're going to be a big old baby,
which are like classic Wolfenstein difficulty settings.
Especially, yes, right down to the fact of the way his face gets like more, deep lined and sort of he brings down his brow and stuff like that. Yeah. And that like it is very much a love letter to classic Wolfenstein in a lot of ways.
Which is good because it's a sequel to the last 2 Wolfenstein games.
Right. But yeah, I was really surprised then by the segments they would do, like the part where your guy is after the shit goes wrong in the beginning, because of course it's not going to let you beat the game in the first 10 minutes. And they do like some of the storytelling things they do with like speeding up time and showing things pass and stuff. Like I found that all very like effective and in a very like in a way that came from someone that understood like how movies do it, I guess is the best way I can describe it. And so I was just surprised at how effective a lot of the things like that were and how good the music is. Like the music in that game to me a lot of times is pretty understated. So like, they don't overdo it.
The music in that game was written by the main dude from a band called Meshuggah.
Oh yeah, I've heard. Well, yeah, yeah. But Meshuggah's a lot heavier than a lot of stuff. I mean, this game has total metal moments, like when shit's going balls out.
But it's much more likely to go sort of like understated, like psychedelic rock kind of notes in a lot of it, which makes sense later. But yeah, it's a really big surprise. Like, I was really taken aback by that game.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy. Like, I got it on my Steam Press account, but I went out and bought it, a physical copy, because
it's
first
a
off,
44 gigabyte download.
yeah, and I have a 300 gigabyte cap on my current
Jesus
internet,
Christ.
and so
Yeah,
and my
they for some reason before the game came out, it was like somebody leaked the fact that there was a patch on PS4 and Xbox One, but they took down the patch on Xbox One for some reason. So there's no patch on it for now. For people who downloaded it. But
okay, yeah, I mean the disc one, you still have to do a little download, but it's great because it's one of those reviews that you can. I mean, one of those games that you can jump into like within like 10 minutes of starting
yeah,
a download, even if you have slow internet. Um, but yeah, it's so far. It's like the first game I've played, probably in the last 3 months that I've been like, I got to get back to that. Like that doesn't hasn't happened that often unless it's something that I'm returning to, like a Minecraft or a Civ 5 that we already know are very addictive.
or like a multiplayer game. Like
Exactly, but this is like the first game single player that I've been like I gotta finish that. Maybe all year. I'm trying to think of other ones. Like even Infamous was fun, but I kind of like put it down for a while and then came back. Like this is one of those ones that all day today while I was at work, I was like, nah, I
yeah.
need to get back to that shit.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I finished the review on PS4 and played some of the Xbox One version just to make sure that it was, like, functional and that it ran, and then I have continued to play it after the review went up because I want to get through it and see the other story and find some of the other secrets. So,
And I do like how some of the tech, I mean, obviously some of it is like way more over the top than they would have probably been doing in 1946. But like some of it, like the jets and stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of where Germany was heading. Like, if
yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, they're reaching to some extent.
some of it is thrown off because, like, it's in continuity for a game that's taken for a series that's taken place over like maybe 3 years, quote, real time, like with starting with Return to Castle Wolfenstein and then Wolfenstein and then this, like, so it's not just, oh well, guess everything you know about the war is wrong and we're going to start in 1946, like, so it's referencing itself in that respect. But they definitely do some interesting things, like the way that they bring down the United States and the way that Germany sort of stabs its allies in the back. And
I also think that it's one thing that kind of took me away is like, so I'm not the type of person that reads every file that I typically find in a game, but and it's because a lot of them are usually throwaway. They're like 100 characters, something is done over with, and but in this game, like man, when you find a letter, like you find a letter that like one of the characters wrote to his wife or something, or you even find a letter from like a random German soldier. They're like 2,000 words, multiple pages,
yeah,
like filling you in on some pretty interesting backstory sometimes.
yeah,
So, I mean, they really went out of their way to like, it's not even shoehorning. It's just like they went out of their way to make sure that if you looked for it, there is a lot of like backstory there to put the world in better context.
and that game is hell of long. Like,
Yeah.
it is really long, like between 14 and 16 hours, I would guess, on your first playthrough.
That's so crazy. God,
Um,
I would have never. That's so hard to do that much single player content too. And I think it's it's one of those things that I think is kind of a potential mechanic that could annoy people. The fact that you have to pick up everything in it, you
yeah,
have to pick up armor.
I've seen some people complain about it.
At the same time, it's like I can understand. Like it forces people to be more thoughtful in the environment as well, though. Um, so it's weird though because it's like that's not something you typically heard people complain about in BioShock, and to me it feels a lot the same way I did in BioShock. Like you finish a fight and then you walk around and you do the lap of just making sure that you've got everything you could off of them.
Right.
So I don't find that particularly offensive, nor do I find. I guess in some ways it's like a subtle nod to classic Wolfenstein. And the only thing that could make it even more classic is if like when I picked up armor, if it did like the hardcore like sound that it used to do. But I don't know. That game is. I am not unhappy that I picked that up.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm glad to hear it.
I'm curious. I'm curious about the Doom beta too, which that's not
Man.
really a selling point for me.
How far away is that beta? Does that beta have to be?
Yeah, I who knows. But like to me, like I'm so happy to support something like Wolfenstein. Like it just is. It's cool to see a rad first-person single-player game. Like
Yeah.
I feel like those are going to become increasingly rare to a large degree.
And I mean, like, this is probably like the best time to release it, right? Like early in the generation when people were sort of like looking for that kind of game. And it is on last gen consoles too.
Yeah.
And after finishing it, like before it came out, there was like, holy shit, the Xbox 360 version's on like 4 or 5 discs. And I had no idea how that could possibly be a thing. And having finished it, now I kind of understand.
Wow.
But this is like the time of the generation where you can get away with making a single player only game because like people need stuff to play.
Yeah, I feel like if Wolfenstein came out like, let's say 2 years from now, and it was the same game, I think Wolfenstein could, like, it's one of those games that's really, really amazing and great right now. 2 years, I think it will still be appreciated as a great game. But if it had released 2 years from now, I feel like it would have been overshadowed a lot just because there would have been so much else to play.
I think
So,
last year, also, the inevitable comparisons to Bioshock Infinite would have arisen.
sure. Yeah, it's just like this is another one of those right place, right time games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Nothing to play that much. Well, except Transistor also came out, but I haven't had a chance to play it.
I played a couple of hours of Transistor. So, like, take the good with like the one sort of not complaint but observation about that game is that Transistor does not give a good goddamn if you understand how to play it or not. So I don't. Did you play a demo at E3 last year? Have you played it ever?
I've never played it. I've watched it a lot, but I didn't wait in the line. So I plan on playing it though.
So on the surface, it's a lot like Bastion in that it's sort of isometric and it's sort of hand animated, and you use the face buttons to do different attacks. And you can move around the world that way and function that way, like attacking enemies with normal attacks on the face buttons in real time. But if you hit the right trigger, I think, it freezes time, and you
Right.
have a bar that basically is your action points, and you can set up movement and attack combinations to trigger almost instantly. Red, the protagonist, like, will go and fast forward once you hit the right trigger or the trigger button or whatever that activates your stuff. And you can pull off stuff that you couldn't do if you weren't freezing time. And so every face button is a different attack. Once you pick up enough attack types, which you do over the course of the game, they're all like digitized personalities, like all these different attacks that you pick up. So every attack can also be used as an upgrade for other attacks. So you either use that pickup as an ability, or you take it out of a slot and socket it into another ability to modify it. And it never quite explains that clearly, and you really need to sort of dig into the system to make it work, and the UI for that kind of sucks. But the thing is, like, it has a great narrative hook in doing so, because every pickup has like a dossier of the individual that ability used to be. And the only way that you can unlock additional information on that dossier to find out more about them is to socket it into something else as an upgrade to do more things with that ability.
It sounds very complicated.
Yeah, it
even just
is
trying to follow
super
it.
complicated. But that's kind of part of its charm, that you do that stuff.
I guess it sounds like one of those things that maybe they don't do as great of a job explaining it as they could. But it sounds like one of those things that once you really knew it, it could make combat feel really awesome when you pull off shit that you're like, I didn't even think I could do that.
And when you freeze time and you queue up like the perfect set of attacks, and you've modified your abilities to make them that much more effective, it feels really good to pull shit off and make it work. And I'm only like an hour and a half, 2 hours into the game, so I'm maybe like a third of the way through. So I have a lot more to go, and I haven't had time to go back into it because I've had other shit going on. But it's beautiful. The music is great. The ambiance and world building is really interesting. So far, my other issue with it is that the story is just very fragmentary and much more suggested than told. And I don't like confession time. I never finished Bastion.
I didn't either.
So I don't know if that's like the way that Bastion was, that if it was very fragmentary and suggested, but I don't remember it being quite as fragmented as Transistor is, but like it's absolutely a gorgeous game that I plan on finishing when I have time.
Yeah, the artist there is ridiculously talented. I mean, she has a very distinct style. Like you can tell this is definitely from the same company, but
Right.
it's like it's fine by me if you're gonna make games that look like that. So, yeah, the only other game I kind of put any serious time into besides Wolfenstein is I put some time into. Well, I played a little bit more Trials Fusion when I was doing the charity live stream. And to anybody who watched, thanks, because they watched me do two 30-minute runs and fail on one track. I tried it twice.
Damn.
For 30 minutes at a time.
That's
and
the worst.
Yeah.
Trials is a harsh mistress.
It is a very harsh mistress. That is my Dark Souls. That's the basically.
Trials is your Dark Souls.
Yeah. But I played some of Space-Based DF9. I don't know if I talked about that here before.
I don't think you have.
So that's Double Fine's, another one of Double Fine's many games that they have out. And this one's
Is that the
access.
mobile game or is that
No, this
PC?
is a PC game where it's you're managing a space station, and so you have to build onto it. It's basically almost like Sim Space Station is the best way to think of it. Like a
Sims or Sim?
Sim somewhere in between, because you can't directly control
so it's Spore
people on your base, but you can tell them like you're going to be a miner and I want this stuff mined, and then they'll go do it when they're not sleeping or eating. Like they're on their own schedule.
Oh,
and you're
okay.
And you're just trying to fulfill their needs, so you have to constantly check over them the way you would in Sims for like, oh, someone's really sad, they don't have enough entertainment. And you're like, fuck, I better slot a construction spot and be like, oh, build a gym, and then your builders would get around to it when they're on duty.
So it's libertarian SimCity kind of.
Yeah, I guess in a way, except now it's set in space, and you have to worry about like random people that will invade your station, in which case you have to like sound the alarm and put everyone on security duty, and they'll sit there and duke it out in the hallways, with like phasers and stuff like that. And you have to worry about like certain people hate each other, so you may not want them to work together, and you're just constantly having to maintain the facility because it's always falling apart, while you're also trying to harvest resources, while you're also trying to decide whether or not you want to let new people on your station because they may be like evil. But that game is a surprising amount of fun. Like especially it's early access and it breaks a lot at this point. But
that's a lot of their games on Steam right now.
Yeah, I mean, but it is.
I couldn't even install Hack and Slash.
I got Hack and Slash to work, but yeah, I mean, it has its fair share of problems. But just like you'd expect from a Double Fine game, extremely great personality to it. To the way the characters animate, to the descriptions for things like food replicators and stuff like that, to just the interactions, to just how silly. Like even when your guys. Like you'll be like, all right, security team, go investigate this derelict space chunk we found. And then they'll board and they'll get into a crazy firefight with monsters and get murdered. It's still kind of funny when it happens. So, that being said, I still feel like give that game like 6 months and it'll be awesome. Like fucking great. Like for now, it's a lot like it was the first time Tyler years ago was, Tyler was like, hey, you should try out Kerbal Space Program. And I did. And I was like, I like this. But it was hard as balls to play because there was no like assisted steering or anything like that, and it was basically more steep of a learning curve than I really wanted, and unstable. And so I would say that's kind of the same thing with this. There's still a lot of promised features on the way. There's still a lot that you can't build yet because it's not implemented, and there's still a lot of stability issues.
So it's early ass access.
It is early ass access. But I still think that game has a lot of potential. Like to me, that's the coolest Double Fine game I've probably played in like the last 3 years or more.
Did you like stacking?
I
don't remember.
Stacking was fun. I didn't get far enough into it, but that game had a fucking awesome personality too. So,
I couldn't get into stacking.
I liked Costume Quest quite a bit.
Oh yeah, to respond to the chat, it was Oakland as fuck outside of my window, so I had to close my window.
Yeah, that pretty much happens in Arthur's neighborhood.
It wouldn't be a Rebel FM without Oakland being Oakland.
What's funny is I was talking and I didn't even hear it, but I could hear someone being like, bah, bah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Arthur lives in an interesting neighborhood.
It's not that so much as like this entire wall of my apartment is a window. which is great for light, but awful for street noise. But so far, like the unofficial fifth member of Rebel FM hasn't made an appearance yet, so we're doing all right.
What, the guy that rides the dirt bike?
The guy on his like a gas-powered scooter, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been playing a bit more Infamous, getting well deep into that. Like, I think it says I'm like at 58%.
So you're like way into the second island.
Yes.
I should go back to that and finish it.
I am enjoying it, and I think the powers they have in it are really cool. I just unlocked the third power a little bit ago, and I love, like, I think there's a lot of really great things to be learned from that game, as far as like little bits to be gleaned. Like, oh, that's really fucking cool. If I ever made a game like that, I would want to do it almost exactly like that.
Like, thinking about it now, like the thing about that game is that it's just kind of shallow. Like, there's not a ton of depth to what you're doing. Like, you're doing the same stuff over and over again. And what's there is reasonably refined. It's just like there's not much more to it than the thing that you do right away.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like in that way, it almost feels kind of like classic, like the very first Assassin's Creed. And you know what I mean? In the sense that it's like, go here, unlock this thing to unlock the city, find the spot where you can go on top. It's the same thing in Infamous. It's like, go here, but do the drug bust if you want. Do the side missions of taking out all the bases, and then find the shards. All right, move on. It's hard to fill out the expectation for as much content as they're supposed to have within that area, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good comparison, actually.
So yeah, I mean, it feels, but it's like that same thing that people leveled at the original Assassin's Creed. You do the same thing for a bunch of hours, and to some degree, that's true of like Far Cry 3. It's true of Infamous as well. It's just, it does become a little bit more apparent at times in Infamous.
I think like Far Cry 3 grabbed me much more because its basic mechanics were much more sound. And I think that the in-game economy and upgrade system was really well integrated. So that made it sort of like relentlessly playable in a way that that Infamous hasn't been, because Infamous, the upgrade system is fairly simple, and like halfway through that game, I have like way more points than I can ever spend.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've managed to spend them all, but it's because I've also put them in things that I wasn't even particularly excited about, but I was like, I got the shards, so I guess, and but I am happy that at least if nothing else, Infamous is better to me than the other ones, just because you get to swap up the powers that you're using.
Sure.
Like, I feel like that helps a lot. And every power has a really fun take on rapid traversal of the city, much faster than you could ever do with Cole.
Yeah, you know what? I stopped it at Neon, so I haven't gotten any farther than that, but I should finish that game at some point. I should probably do it before I can't ever finish any old games.
See, that's the thing. Yeah, that's why I've been playing it too, because I'm like, give it like 3 months from now, and it's going to be no more nothing.
Well, I mean, like, so in 2 weeks I'm leaving for E3, and then after E3, like, it'll be quiet for maybe 4 or 5 weeks probably, and then like shit will get real fast.
Everyone always thinks that they're missing out because they can't go to E3, but unless you're going there to see people that I feel like E3 isn't really. You can pretty much see all the cool stuff just by watching the live streams nowadays, and that's like the best part anyways. And then if you know people and stuff, then you can make more out of E3. But if you were just like as a consumer show, it would suck. But so I am. But that being said, I am a little sad that this will almost certainly, unless the weird stars align like they did last year, be the very first E3 I missed in a long time.
I'm gonna be really sad that I don't get to hug you at E3 this year.
I know. I love going. I love to catch up with people, but I just don't think it's gonna be in the cards.
But before E3, like, one of the things that I'm hoping to get a review up of is the Retron 5, which I have now, and which I've gotten working, which took a lot, actually, to make happen, because there was a firmware thing, and that system is not out yet. Right. So the way that people who, like end-facing consumers will download firmware updates for that system is not in place yet, and there was a lot of back and forth and finagling to get a working firmware version for that system. But I bought some games on the eBays, and I've been putting it through its paces. So far, it seems to be doing all right. the visual quality is pretty decent. It's very clean because it's HDMI. The filters that they've provided on it aren't super great. Like,
What do you mean filters?
like they're like emulators have filters that you can apply to games to like try to quote clean up or smooth out the visuals. And the Retron has some very like typical emulator filters, but I'm not really a big fan of any of them. But also, I do like the scanline support. I think that that's good. And I don't know. I think it's got potential to be really cool, and like having something that you can hook up via HDMI to play on your TV and not have to worry about dealing with a computer.
Much is it again?
It's 140, I think.
It's not so bad if you're a diehard person and you want to be able to like, maybe you want to keep your old consoles, but you want to keep the context on them good or something. You can box them up and then still play the games you like.
Well, and even then, like, you can't play them over HDMI. Like, you can't play them on a modern LCD or plasma TV without like pretty significant input lag, like from a composite signal being upscaled. So in that respect, it's like really the only choice, unless you're going to spend $500 on an aluminum NES. It's still Oakland outside of my window. There are people screaming. So my initial impressions are the convenience of it is really cool. The flexibility of the systems it can play is good. It can play Game Boy games, Game Boy Color games, Game Boy Advance games. It can play NES. It can play Famicom. It can play Genesis, and if you have the Master System converter, it can play Master System games in the Genesis slot. And it can play SNES and Super Famicom games. And it's got controller ports for all of those. Which is good because the controllers poop from a butt. It's really bad. It's really, really bad. So far, it seems to be doing okay with some emulation problem games. Like Sam Claiborne at IGN got Star Fox on it, working without problem. I ordered a copy of Castlevania 3 that should be showing up tomorrow that I will test.
Ordered it from where?
From Amazon. There are people selling used games on Amazon.
Okay.
Off eBay, I got Speedy Gonzalez on SNES, which actually has like an emulator issue that breaks the game at level 6-1. But that unfortunately means I need to get to level 6-1 in that game, and that game's not very good.
Someone asked a question that I am curious. They asked, can you stick a 32X in it? I'm curious.
No, you can't.
Okay.
And also, there is one game I put in it that hasn't worked, and that's Virtua Racing for Genesis.
That's weird, because I mean, I guess I don't really know exactly what it's doing inside, if it's emulating or not, because to me, I thought it was actually hardware.
Right, and that's what I thought too, but I'm really not sure at this point. Like, it's being sold on near perfect compatibility with everything. But the thing about a game like Star Fox is that it's got the Super FX chip. It's got an additional processor doing additional co-processing. And with Virtua Racing, that has an even crazier co-processor to work in tandem with the Genesis hardware to push all those polygons. And when I put it in the Retron, it set it into a menu reset loop. So I don't know if that's a firmware problem or if that's like a cartridge problem or if that game just does not work.
That's so crazy to me. That's like just thinking about that back in the day, cartridge games did give them the chance to quite possibly throw a processor in the game itself.
Right, and that's also why, like, it blows me away whenever people complain about how much games cost right now, because, like, Virtua Racing, when it came out, I'm going to look that up and see how much it cost.
I'm sure it was over $100, you know. I don't know, like, I remember when me and my friends, we bought Perfect Dark, and it had to have that pack with it. I remember we all had to go in to get that shit because it was so expensive.
But, like, if you look at old sale papers for games like that, it'd be like $100 for a game like that. It's goddamn ridiculous. But I mean, $100. It was $100 for Virtua Racing.
$100 of that time money.
Adjusted for inflation, that's like $150.
Yeah.
So that's disappointing that I can't play that, but that could just be a fluke. So I'm going to throw some other stuff at it. I might try to get a hold of some of the later Mega Man X games, which had additional FX processors with them. Because I feel like if that game can't reliably play almost everything you could throw at it, then it's really sort of not worth the price, because the amount of investment that you need to put into that, if you don't already have like a massive sort of collection of stuff, is significant.
Sure. Can you plug in classic controllers into it if you don't want to use the wireless Bluetooth one?
Yeah, so it's got 2 SNES ports, 2 Genesis ports, and 2 NES ports.
Oh, wow.
And you can use the Super Nintendo controllers for Game Boy Advance stuff. It is interesting, like, playing Game Boy Advance stuff on the screen. Like, my partner bought me Drill Dozer for Christmas, like a Game Boy Advance game. And, like, because the Retron was supposed to be out by then, so that's why I got it. And then it didn't come out. But now that it's here, I can finally play Drill Dozer, which is a lot of fun, by the way. If you haven't checked that game out and you have the opportunity to do so, I highly recommend it. So there's stuff I like about it so far, but the jury is definitely still out on whether or not it is what it needs to be.
I think my favorite NES game is North and South. I love that dumb game.
Oh God.
I love that one, and I loved Carrier Races. Those were the 2 games I liked, because they were, and that was an SNES game, but as far as like, those were like 2 great local multiplayer games.
Right.
They were quite good. I mean, North and South could have been anything. I just liked the fact that it was almost like real-time strategy in a way at the time that other games weren't doing.
Did you ever play Herzog Zwei?
Herzog Zwei is also really great, and I never played the original until I had heard of Air Mech, and then people were like, "Oh, Air Mech is like a spiritual Herzog Zwei," and so
yeah.
I went and checked it out, and very much so, very similar games. But,
it's funny, I played Herzog Zwei, but I have not played Air Mech, so I should probably do that at some point.
Tal, our old boss from IGN, says that they're like the same game, and in the best ways, because I guess Tal said when he was like, he was one of those few thousand people that actually played that game in America.
Sure.
So said that it was really, really incredible.
Also, like, this seems like a good opportunity to maybe try some Japanese games if that opportunity presents itself.
Oh, does it work with?
Yeah. And European cartridges as well.
I see. Did they not region lock back then?
No, they did, but it. Well, no. So the region lock on a lot of that stuff was physical. Like, you had to trim cartridges to get them to fit. Like, I think that's the way it worked for Genesis anyway, and for Mega Drive for European stuff. So yeah, Retron. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Fucking around on Dota still. You play anything else?
Not really. I mean, that's what I was saying. I've been working on a personal project in Unreal that will probably not turn into anything.
It's the Spear game, right?
No, this one's a different game. So
it's a different game.
I've just been experimenting with things, trying to learn. Someday I would like to get to the point where I could put out. It's funny when you hear about somebody that's like putting out a game completely on their own. Now I'm just like, that is a world.
It's so much work.
I can only imagine. I'm just not there yet. So I guess, Arthur, I'm curious. Is there, we could do some. Should we save E3 predictions for next time?
The problem is I maybe know a little too much about E3 stuff to do E3 predictions.
I see. Well, I don't know shit about shit.
I could tell you about some E3 shit when we're not on the air.
I see.
That's pretty neat. But
sorry, everyone. I didn't know that.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
I want to, basically for me, since I'm not going, I really just want to watch the conferences. That's like my big thing.
I saw some belly aching and potential, like, people saying, well, it's going to be a boring E3 because there were a lot of companies that weren't at Judges Week this year, which is really unusual. Like, Ubisoft wasn't at Judges Week, I've never heard of that happening. But there's a lot of stuff that's set to get announced and shown for the first time at E3. Like, I think that there's going to be some really cool shit. And I think that this fall is going to have a lot of really cool shit for people to play. And I mean, God, October is already the most disastrously packed month for releases I can remember in a really long time. Like, Evolve just got announced for October today.
Oh, that's what I figured. I mean, August and September and well, September's pretty empty because no one wants to release their own Destiny.
I don't
But
know if that's true or not.
but August and October, I've looked. Both of them are slowly but surely stacking up. Even if it's like smaller games, smaller I say in quotes like The Evil Within and stuff like that. Like all those games are starting to populate that little chunk, and I feel like that's gonna be a tough, Shadow of Mordor, like all that stuff's in there. That's gonna be a tough time.
Aliens or Alien Isolation is early
Yeah.
October. Yeah, there's just
Yeah.
way too much shit coming out in October.
And it's like some of them are like really big, and then some of them are like trying to think of the best way to describe them. They have like AAA budgets in some cases, but they're still not like headline breaking games like an Assassin's Creed or something like that. But there's still like a lot of hopes riding on them, and there's so many of those in that time.
What will
Like,
be
God,
this year's Rainbow Six Vegas, Anthony?
Yeah. I want to say that, man, I want Evolve to do well. I'm worried that it won't because I
It's
don't know.
coming
Like,
out in a really competitive space right now.
yeah, but every time I read something about it or should listen to someone talk about it or watch videos on it, I'm like, that fucking game looks so cool. And I've put so many hours into Left 4 Dead with you and our friends that I'm like, I want to believe that they can do that again and give me.
So I will say this because I literally have no fucking idea if it's going to happen or not. Like the rumor continues to persist that there's going to be some kind of Left 4 Dead thing at the show. I would be so fucking happy if that were the case.
I wonder if it'll be with them or if it'll just be like someone else or maybe them like a sub team in their studio. I don't know.
Or they like at Hidden Path to do Left 4 Dead 3.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I would be totally stoked for more Left 4 Dead. That's the bottom line. It's been a couple of years now, probably more than a couple of years now.
How funny it is that we're saying that after like the wave of anger and fury when Left 4 Dead 2 came out a year after the first one.
I was happy about that. To me, it was just I mean, yes, it could have been DLC. You can argue whatever you wanted, but to me, it was like I get more maps and more excuses to like
And totally new
have date nights with
characters.
my friends.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, I would be really excited if that happened. I don't know if it is. And if I had to bet money, if I was forced to bet money, I wouldn't bet on it happening. But it's like the thing that won't die.
Sure. I don't think Valve will have anything at E3.
I get mad thinking about the games that Valve's not making, even though I like
Sure.
Dota. God damn it.
Yeah. I mean, Valve doesn't need anything right now, right? Like, God, I just keep thinking about how many people had to buy the compendium to get the prize money up as high as it is now. That's so crazy.
It's at like 7 or 8 million, I think.
Which means, and only 250 of each compendium goes to that. So that means they sold that many more of them.
I bought a compendium.
I've been thinking about buying a compendium. I don't want to talk about it.
You don't even play Dota.
I like to play, but I only like to play every once in a while. I find that game, what it comes down to is I don't like to lose.
Yeah.
In Dota in particular. Like in Call of Duty or Titanfall, when I lose, I'm like, no big deal, another round.
It's a way lower investment of time to lose
Yes,
in
and
Call
then
of
in
Duty or
Dota, it's like
Titanfall.
Dota, it's like 45 minutes or an hour, and I'm just like, and then the last thing I had to do was have some guy that talks shit to me the entire game say commend me at the end, and I'm like,
And like the thing
die.
is, like with a lot of heroes, like one of my compendium heroes is Phantom Assassin, who takes a lot of time of playing very cautiously before he actually starts to get effective. And so like it can be 20 minutes before you're even doing anything of value, like as a character in Dota. And if you're just starting out, that's really crappy. Like it's play with friends. That's what we come back to. Play with friends.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line is I've never played a random game of Dota. I only play with you guys, so.
I've had decent luck playing with randoms lately, but I also don't play ranked. So, do you want to do
Can
some
read a couple letters?
letters?
Yeah.
And hope we don't get ourselves in trouble.
Yeah. Let's see.
Someone in the chat asked if we tried out the Astro A38s. I hate the A30s.
What are these?
Those are the A30s, I think.
Oh, okay. I like them.
They're too small for my ears. These are the A40s.
The A40s, I like the A30s because I can wear them out.
Yeah, these are a little ostentatious for outside the house.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll read this one from Dan, who wrote in because he knew we were doing this live show.
Okay.
It's a relationship letter.
Oh, geez. Are you sure you don't want to save that for the sadness cast?
No, we can. Okay. So Dan says, I recently studied abroad. I have no idea what this says, by the way. I'm reading it cold. I recently studied abroad in England in the fall semester of this year. When I was there, I met a girl who was also studying abroad. We bonded because we were both American, and it was nice to have someone to relate to. Over the 3 months, I developed feelings for her, and toward the end, she developed feelings for me, and this all culminated in a kiss when we took a trip to Rome. One of the last days, on the last few days, I finally told her that I really liked her, to which she said she liked me as well and would love for things to progress, but she knew that we wouldn't see each other beyond this study abroad experience. She lives in South Carolina. He lives in New Hampshire. That's not even that far.
That is far
It's
enough.
far enough. It is far enough. After returning home in December, I flew her up to see me for New Year's, where she stayed with me for 4 days into the new year. Those 4 days were awesome. We played Minecraft, where she showed me a few new things. We played in the snow and all that fun stuff. During the 4 days, we acted like we were dating, kissing, going out on dates, breakfast in bed, etc. We talked every day since we came back from England. She eventually told me she didn't want to date because she was focused on school. This crushed me, but I accepted it because what else could I do? A few months later, she asked if I'd come visit her on spring break in New Jersey. I did, and she broke it to me that she had a boyfriend. Fast forward a few months.
Your voice when you read that says it all.
Fast forward a few months, and we start talking again, and she says she isn't dating the guy anymore and would love for me to come visit her in South Carolina. So my question is, do I go visit her? Also to note, she's taking a summer job in New Hampshire solely because I live there, and she said she wants to hang out all the time.
Man.
So it's got Anthony past life troubles written all over.
Oh yeah. So I'm going to leap to a conclusion here and make a judgment on this person, which is that, not to speak to whether she's a bad person or a good person, because that's not the point. She like cultivated her potential relationship with you while she was in a relationship with someone else, and then once she like ejected from that, she like transitioned to you, which leads me to believe that she doesn't know how to deal with adult relationships.
Yeah, you're her fun thing to have around until she finds someone that she can trade up for now.
Right. I mean, like,
she's got some growing up to do. I would say stay away, Dan. Also, the only part of it that really bummed me out was that where she had you come meet her in Jersey just to tell you that she had a boyfriend.
That's fucked up.
I would have been like, just tell me in advance, and then I'll know if I want to go to Jersey or not.
It's fucked up for her to have not told you that.
Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of things to say, like, oh, well, it sounds like you validate her, or she feels validated by your attention, and she doesn't really necessarily know if she wants to be around you long term, but you're a good distraction.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like you are like a secondary priority to her, and she knows how to make you feel good, but that's
I guess
not a good foundation for a relationship.
I mean, if Dan could do it in just a we're having fun capacity, and they were both in that, I guess that'd be one thing.
It doesn't sound like he could, though. Like, it sounds like he's already like half in the bag.
Nope. That's exactly what I feel too.
Of love.
Okay, sorry, looking for a different letter.
No, that's all right.
Let's see.
People are getting the full Rebel FM experience.
Where I sit there and give the delay?
Yeah, where you like make your breathing noises.
Okay.
Pew 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 pew.
Jesus.
This is excellent television.
Hi everyone.
I just got a direct message on Twitter.
God, we've got hardly any letters. We can take some live questions from the chat, I guess, if we wanted.
All right, chat. Why don't you give us some questions? I'm gonna look on Twitter and see if there are any questions.
I'm curious too about someone wrote in about games with gold, and I am curious what will be the first Xbox One.
I think they said what the first Xbox One games with gold
Wouldn't
are.
surprise me if it was something like Max and the Magic Marker.
It's Max and the Curse of Brotherhood and Spartan Assault.
Okay, see, that's what I figured. I figured for a while it would be the arcade games before we would see something like 6 months from now, a year from now, maybe we'll see something like Rise.
I think Spencer has suggested that there will be like announcements at E3 about games with gold. But I mean, I think Max and the Curse of Brotherhood is pretty neat and definitely worth checking out. Spartan Assault is a crappy mobile game, But hey, at least it's not Lococycle.
Yeah, I mean, I never played Locus Cycle. It just didn't really appeal to me, which is a shame because I really loved Explosion Man.
I
That
really
was
did
such a
too.
fucking cool game.
Lococycle was not Explosion Man. And they also made Power Star Golf free to try today.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know that I would call it free to play, considering how limited it is, but it's free to try and got pretty good reviews.
Hmm. Um, let's see.
What do we think about Canada, the places, the people, etc.? Well, aside from the fact that such hideous monstrosities as Avril Lavigne, Chad Kroger, and Mitch Dyer are from Canada, I think it's a wonderful place.
No, there's good, but Nathan Fillion's Canadian. And
Right.
he's great. No, they're
But
Canada
really,
is
like,
really beautiful, but
how many Nathan Fillions does it take to make up for one Mitch Dyer?
it's true. And it also depends where we're talking about too. I've never been to Montreal, but man, Montreal people, Quebecois, they fucking love to talk about how much cooler they are than the rest of
Did I
Canada.
ever tell you that I killed Nathan Fillion in Halo once?
No.
This is E3 2012 at the Halo 4 event,
Oh,
which is
so
multiplayer.
he had a voice in that, right?
Yes,
So
but he was at that event for a Make-A-Wish thing. Like, there was a kid with cancer there, and he and, what's his name? Alan?
Adam Baldwin?
No, no, not the
Oh,
asshole.
Alan Tudyk.
Alan Tudyk. Yes, we're there, like, for that. Like, for that wonderful child, and I took the opportunity to kill them at Halo. You were saying about Canada?
No, I was saying Quebec people. When I watched the most recent, or one of the Anthony Bourdain's new show, um, I was blown away by how much they are so obsessed with themselves, their own part of the country. But
Okay.
they love Quebec. People in Quebec, they love Quebec.
Well,
Fuck you.
it's good to love things.
Um, but you know what? Someone asked how I feel about Gary Whitta writing Star Wars.
That's a
I
good.
had a,
So that was announced today. Gary Whitta is writing the first standalone Star Wars movie with Gareth Edwards of Monsters and Godzilla directing.
I liked Monsters. You know, the funny thing is like Godzilla was great because of the monsters. Monsters was great because of the people. It's like,
Which is interesting. That's an
yeah,
interesting
I would
change.
like it if he could do something that I mean, he wrote Monsters too. I don't think he wrote Godzilla, but
No.
um so I'll be curious, you know, I think that I liked Book of Eli quite a bit and that was Gary's first like movie that he got done. I wasn't as big of a fan of After Earth, but I don't know is that right? After Earth? Yeah.
Yes, that
Uh
is the movie that did not do well that Gary
yeah.
Whitta wrote
I
some
mean, he
of.
wrote it, but it's like the hard part about it too is like it's hard to judge sometimes a screenwriter based on the movie that ultimately comes out because he does a treatment, he turns it in, they're like, this is the script, and then for all you know, producers and everyone else get their hands in it, and they're like, no, we really want this character to be mean at some part, and so then all of a sudden, you know, shit gets turned, and so it's hard to know when there's a flop how much of that is like a script's fault versus a director versus you know an actor. It's hard to say, or if it's a little bit of all three. Um, I've met Gary. I've always thought he's really fucking cool, and I know that he loves shit like Star Wars. So, and he's had some less than kind things to say about some of the newer movies more recently. So I feel like Gary gets, at least for someone like me, what makes Star Wars great, and I think he's going to write that. Now it's a standalone film. I am curious what it is. My gut tells me it's a Boba Fett movie or something like that. That's just my wild guess.
That's sort of the easy call, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like it'd just be really easy for them to do a Boba Fett movie. I don't know.
Um, yeah, it could
Yeah,
be good.
yeah.
It could be
I
good.
I mean, I'm just really happy for him, just because it's like so crazy to
That's
see
a
someone
hell of a break.
that's someone that started off writing, you know, reviews and stuff at EGM, and now he's writing a goddamn Star Wars movie.
Whatever he's paying his agent, it is not enough.
Yes, yes,
Like,
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they did very well. Um,
the 18th King says After Earth sucked because of M. Night Shyamalan.
that could very well be true. That's what I'm saying, right? It's hard to say. Like Gary's script may have been totally different, and then it just got kind of, you know, screwed with as it went along. It's hard to say how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, hey,
Um,
like it. This could be a great opportunity. Also, they will be under incredible scrutiny. What I hope is that this isn't Gareth Edwards' Elysium.
yeah,
Like, because Neil Blomkamp did some really cool shit, and then he made Elysium, which is fucking terrible.
yeah. It's funny, Arthur. I feel like Elysium for me was kind of the same way that it was when I watched episode one, where I went in and I was with people that were like, "That was bad," and I was like, "No, no,
No, no.
it wasn't bad. It was just it had some weak parts."
That sounds like me
And then
after I
like
saw Battlefield Earth.
and then like a month later, you're like, "It wasn't. It had a lot of bad parts." And then and then
God,
like a
that
year
whole movie was bad
and
parts.
then like a year later, you're like, I want to kill the person that made that." And it's just
They
like,
must not be allowed to make more.
yeah.
So there's a couple. There's an interesting letter. Did you see the one from Tom Baldwin
No,
about people with passion or people without passion? Did we read that one already? I don't think that we did.
I don't think so.
All right, I'll read this. This is from Tom. He says, "Hello, I've been an avid listener of your podcast for about 2 years now. I am a 29-year-old, recently promoted software architect without any career-oriented friends to get advice from. I work for a software company which employs over 5,000 people with about 1,000 working at the main campus located in a southwest Missouri town of 9,000. Yikes. I work in a development group of about 10 people. Since I started 7 years ago, I have painstakingly challenged the way the group works in order to make the process better. I bet you are really popular, by which I mean the opposite of that.
Yep.
I feel like I am surrounded by people without passion. There is childish drama, backstabbing, and decision-making is highly influenced by politics instead of logic. The town is devoid of people in their 20s, and I feel this also causes a slow adoption of new technology and change. It also prevents much of a personal romantic life. Before my recent promotion, I was to the point where I was going to ignore my passion, avoid trying to make things better, move to KC, work remotely, focus on my personal life, and just do what I was told and collect a check. However, over the past year, my boss's boss's boss has been closely watching the development group and noticed my passion and skill, and the roadblocks others in the group caused to slow down projects. A new position of software architect was recently created for me, placing me as a peer between my old software engineer boss and the business analyst supervisor. I'm going to skip ahead. This new position has caused an excessive amount of drama from my new peers and is bringing out the worst in me. I really enjoy my work, but I think 7 years of working with these personalities has been enough. I am starting to think I need to admit defeat, leave my job, and move to Seattle due to a higher likelihood to find a tech job. It would also be a way to get away from a conservative Bible Belt area. The problem is I've never done anything so bold as resigning from a career, moving halfway across the country, or even living in a real city. I've always dreamed of being a video game programmer. Don't do it! But feel like I lack the experience to get a job doing that. I have the opportunity to work remotely in my current position. I'm not sure if just physically being away from them will make anything better.
You probably couldn't work remotely as a game programmer.
Yeah, no, definitely not. So the good news is that with a promotion, that makes you more desirable for other employers. So I would suggest looking for a job while you still have a job in the places where you want to go.
No one... It's generally a bad idea to look for a job when you don't have one. I don't know.
It's harder to find a job when you don't have one.
Not only that, but people I feel like are always less inclined to negotiate with you too if they're not like trying to get you away.
Because
like,
they own your ass.
Valuable. Yeah, and at some point you're also desperate enough that you're like, yeah, whatever, I'll settle.
I'll take $7 an hour. That's cool. I'll eat cheeseburgers. So here's the thing: is that it sounds like your geography and personal life is not to your liking, and that's really making you miserable in addition to the work stuff. So I think that is the stuff that you should probably try to change. As far as like childish drama, backstabbing, and decision making highly influenced by politics instead of logic, I don't know that that's going to be much different if you go somewhere else. Like, that is a thing that affects a lot of places.
Yeah.
Which is a shitty reality of being an adult, but that's the thing that nobody ever tells you, is like all the shit that you think is like so high school and stuff that'll never be that way when you grow up. It's totally that way when you grow up.
Dude, there are times that and places I have worked where when I think back on it, the closest analogy I can think of it is like being in the fucking King's Hand's court in Game of Thrones, people are fucking having little clandestine meetings before meetings and building alliances and making sure that they have political capital that they can use to get something they want. It can get bad.
Yeah.
Even as adults.
Just,
so.
I mean, if you move somewhere that is more compatible with you as a person, like you can find things outside of work to make yourself happy. And I think that that would be a good idea. Like if you can be happy elsewhere, then it would probably be easier to be happy with your job. And then there's not as much pressure on your job to make you happy.
Yep. Well, are we worded out?
We're probably worded out. I have to poop.
Real talk with you guys.
And I gotta go for a run. I have to.
I do miss going. I should go to the gym tonight. Well, you guys have just wasted an hour of your life with us. We did a shorter show, but it was because Matt's off doing Area 5 things, and Mitch is off doing Area Love things, and
this is
I'm so. No, I'm just kidding. But
man, Skype almost crapped out right now, and it would have been perfect timing.
Anyways, if you want to find us on the internet, I'm gonna do this shit for you people who are watching too, because some people will listen to this. Most people listen to this, but if you want to find us on the internet, I'm at Chuff Money on Twitter. Arthur is at AEGIES, and Mitch is at Mitchy D, and Matt is at Talking Orange. And then remember that the guys at Area 5 are, still doing the new episodes of Co-op and all that. And if you want to see that, as well as the documentary series that they're going to be doing and releasing, they have Slacker backer options now through Humble Bundle.
So another thing really quick is that we are probably going to do a Sadcast, a all relationship letters podcast with the internet's Dr. Nerdlove.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So please tell your wife, tell your kids to send in all of the relationship letters you've ever really wanted to have answered.
Yeah, just like Dan did.
Yeah.
We'll do them and
we will
tell you what
them.
you probably already knew.
Yeah. To letters@eat-sleep-game.com.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And then also go check out the internet where people do work like Arthur on Polygon, where you'll soon be able to read things like reviews on Watch Dogs, and you can go read Arthur's review that's currently up for Wolfenstein and figure out why he liked it.
I love that you put the stank on Stein.
A little bit more Wolfenstein.
It's Wolfenstein.
You can go read about why in a little bit more like coherent fashion exactly what Arthur's thoughts were playing that game. And then if you go to IGN, you can read a bunch of the news that Mitch is doing. And then if you go to zombie.com, you can find out what stuff my company's doing as well. But without further ado, we are going to be out. Have a good weekend. Thanks for everyone that watched us live and to all the people that are listening after the fact. Have a good week.
Bye, guys.
Go out and do something good.
Thanks for watching or listening or jerking it, I guess. I don't know.